What's up, guys, and welcome back to Beyond the Void Horror Podcast. My name is Alex, and today we're going to be doing a spoiler-free review of Amityville Uprising. Let's check it out. So it's a new year, guys. Happy New Year to you. I hope you had a great holiday celebration as well as a new year. I know things have been difficult all over for just about everybody, but I hope that this year will be better for you. And thank you guys so much for last year. We really had a lot of new people coming in, and we got a lot of great followers who really talk in the comment section and really kind of give their point of view. It's just great to have. So thank you guys so much for a great last year. Took a little bit of a break for the holiday season to do my top 20 horror films of 2021. Since it's 2022 now, there is a new podcast out you can check. I'll put a link down below. It's for the top 20 films. See some movies that maybe you haven't heard of that I didn't review here or on the podcast. It's a great episode, and I hope you give it the time to check it out. Moving forward, as you already know, there are a ton of Amityville low-budget movies that have been coming out as of late. It's pretty hard to peruse the internet without tripping over a Amityville horror movie. There's just a lot, and I think there's something with the name being able to be used by pretty much anybody now. There's no particular copyright or trademarking or anything like that, so that's why we're seeing a lot of these. Now, Amityville Uprising is probably a little bit more competently made. There are a lot of these that are, very low budget. They don't have a whole lot of money, and, the acting's pretty terrible, and sometimes, the just movie in general is just thrown together. This one is a little bit different. Now, Amityville Uprising just came out today. The story of Amityville Uprising is that a military lab blows up in Amityville in Long Island, and they have some sort of chemical that goes up into the air and starts to rain acid rain. Meanwhile, there's some cops that are at this police station in Amityville who start seeing signs of this popping up all over the place, and they don't know what to do. Well, this acid rain starts turning people into zombie demons? So when I first saw the trailer, I was actually kind of interested in seeing this because even if I knew that it was going to be a very low budget film, which, by the way, I do kind of judge independent films a little bit differently than I would something like the mainstream, which you should always do in my personal opinion. If you're not into watching smaller budget films that are kind of churned out pretty quickly, this is not going to be that type of movie for you. You have to lower your expectations a little bit and really kind of applaud it for what it can do in such small budget and little amount of time. If that's not your bag and you can't get into these kind of movies, I would probably skip it. This one actually has gore, not so great CGI, decent acting, enough that it's not a hard watch, and it does some things in it that I kind of like, some ideas that make me interested. Also has a few different stories going on in the movie while you watch it. This movie is directed by Thomas J. Churchill, who has done movies like Xenophobia, which I think one of our reviewers did on our website, longlivethevoid.com. He also did two other Amityville movies, The Amityville Moon and The Amityville Harvest. I haven't seen those, so I don't know what to compare. But this movie, it's decently shot. It's more by the book when it comes to filmmaking than anything artistic. Very much just straightforward. There is a lot of different characters in this that the acting was fairly decent. Like, I was not expecting the acting to be as tolerable as it was, and I almost thought that this was going to be one of those so bad it's good kind of movies. So I kind of went into it with that sort of ideology on it, and it actually is playing it straight, like the entire time. There was a few silly moments in the film, or moments that they have in there that are kind of to be entertaining and silly and fun, but that they're actually trying to be somewhat realistic. Some of the actors you might actually know have been in this film, like Tank Jones from Rotten Tail, which we interviewed one of the main actors who played Rotten Tail is in it. You got Scott C. Rowe, who plays this officer with his son, who's competent, and Mike Ferguson, who just looks like a badass. He really does, and I've seen him in other stuff before. He just plays the part really well. There's other actors and characters, of course, but I think these ones are some of the shining ones, although there are other actors that did a fairly decent job. The fact that they added gore into this movie, which was not terrible, really kind of boosted this movie for me. I think where I had the most problem with this movie is how the story took so long to get where it's going. It's not a terrible story, and the characters that they introduced to one another, they're fairly decently written to kind of bounce off of each other, and there's some camaraderie to be had here, but it just takes so long to get to the good stuff that I kind of was like, and there is a couple of spotty acting moments in there, but for the most part, it's tolerable, in my opinion. Now, I'm kind of, 50-50 with these type of movies. I definitely support the independent scene, and this is kind of one of those movies that, you'll see, like, maybe pop out, like, quite frequently in a short amount of time. So for what they did in a short amount of time, I think they did an actually pretty decent job. It's not way above average or anything like that in certain areas, and overall it kind of lacks a little bit because it takes about 45 to an hour to really even get into the third act, which is, to me, the best part of the movie. And even there, it isn't exactly the best. But I do appreciate this movie for at least adding some gore and practical effects in there, because I think with this kind of film, you really kind of want to see that kind of thing. Plus, the whole acid rain thing, I think, is amazing. And I have always wanted to have a movie where it was like actually melting people and stuff like that. And we didn't get a whole lot of it. I mean, there's a few moments in here. They do it the best they can with the budget that they have. But I applaud it for at least trying. And I think it's an interesting idea to throw into this. As far as Amityville goes, it's not the house. It doesn't take really place in that house or about that house. They don't mention like supernatural stuff really at all, but this is like a supernatural cloud that is turning people into sort of demonic zombies, but they don't call them demons. So it's not a bad watch. It's not something that I will pop on all the time. I wouldn't mind if I picked this up cheap in a bin or something like that. If I'm being nice, I would probably say this is about a 4 out of 10 as far as on the independent scale. I can get into these kind of movies, but they're not exactly something that I long for. I kind of long for a little bit more humor in it, but not a bad attempt for what they did on the budget that they had and the time frame that they got it done in. Honestly, it's really not that bad. I've seen lower scores for it, but I think it's competently made. It's just not exactly the best film I've seen. If you like to watch these kind of low budget indie films and you can kind of see past some of the financial flaws that independent films suffer from, it's not a terrible idea overall, but I think they could have done a little bit more. The creature effects were pretty cool. I did enjoy those, so it's not exactly the best, but I enjoyed watching it for the most part. It just took too long to get there. But what do you guys think? Have you seen this movie? Did you enjoy the movie? Did you rent the movie? Amityville Uprising is available for rent for $4.99 or $5.99, depending on whether you want to watch it in HD or not. You can rent it now on YouTube and Amazon. There may be more later. I don't know what it is. I think it's just they spent so much time on the characters, which is not always a bad thing, and I appreciate that they tried, but I think it just was a little too long, and they could have really tightened it up and kind of jumped through some of the motions. They were trying to make you care for the characters, and that's important when in horror when people die. So I understand why they did it. It just seemed a little too heavy on that, and we needed more of the action, gore kind of stuff. I think it can wait to kind of go to a streaming service. But if you want to help support independent filmmakers, make better movies, this is the way you do it. So, but other than that, thank you guys so much for coming by. It's a brand new year. I got some new stuff planned. We have a TikTok now. So if you want to follow BTV Cast on TikTok, you can. Trying to do different things on there to kind of keep it interesting. So if you follow that, definitely follow us there. But other than that, thank you guys so much for stopping by. And as always, long live the void.